Free Gaza! Free Gaza! This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. Anjali?
We go now to the Gaza Strip. The New York-based rights group Human Rights Watch released a report last week detailing new evidence of possible Israeli war crimes committed during last winter's Operation Cast Lead in Gaza that left over 1,400 Palestinians dead. The report says Israeli soldiers unlawfully shot and killed at least 11 Palestinian civilians, including 5 women and 4 children, who were in groups waving white flags to make clear that they were civilians and not combatants. It calls for an independent investigation into these deaths and prosecutions under international law if Israel fails to fairly investigate and prosecute those responsible.
Well, the report was released last week, and it's already come under heavy fire from the Israeli government and army spokespeople who deny any wrongdoing on the part of soldiers. Israel's repeatedly blamed Hamas for the deaths of Palestinian civilians, claiming Hamas used civilians as human shields. Well, we're joined now here in our Firehouse studio by the lead author of the report, White Flag Deaths, the Killings of Palestinian Civilians During Operation Cast Lead. Fred Abrahams is a senior researcher at Human Rights Watch's Emergencies Program. What did you find, Fred?
Well, this was the 5th report we've issued on what Israel called Operation Cast Lead, and 2 of those reports were on Hamas violations, and 3 were on Israeli conduct. Now, this last report looks at the deaths of 11 Palestinian civilians. Now, this is a small number compared to the total number of Gazans that were killed in the operation, but they're significant because in each of these cases, the civilians were in groups waving white flags. And we did in-depth research on the ground, visited the sites, interviewed the witnesses. And a crucial key element is that in these cases, there was no evidence of Palestinian fighters in the area at the time. And that's key because Israel has explained and justified many civilian deaths by saying Hamas was there using human shields. And in these cases, we didn't find that to be the case.
Fred Abrahams, the Israeli government and the IDF have both responded to the report rather harshly. I spoke to Israel's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Daniel Carmon, yesterday. He declined our invitation to appear on the program along with Human Rights Watch today, but responded to the report over the phone Sunday evening.
Those kind of reports, and we've seen a few in the last few months, tend to mislead in a conception that takes it into a generalized world. And I think that what we are confronted with is we have a bigger picture. The bigger picture is a new phenomenon that the world is confronted with, and I can tell you firsthand at the United Nations also, this new world of new kind of warfare, people don't know exactly how to confront this. On the one hand, a democracy like Israel, with a free society, free press, everything is transparent, using and exerting its right to self-defense against terrorism. On the other side, a terrorist organization that has been occupying the territory of the Gaza Strip for a while now. Human Rights Watch coming and investigating. And I think that we have a problem in the methodology of this investigation. They asked questions from people who cannot really say what they think, people who saw the systems and the way Hamas was fighting from within populated areas, and they're not only living in a territory occupied by terrorism, they're also under terror from their so-called leaders in the terrorist stronghold called Gaza.
But Ambassador Carmon, if I can interrupt for a second, I mean, looking at Human Rights Watch's methodology, and they've also put out a report, a statement last week saying that, it wasn't just, first of all, they spoke to 3 eyewitnesses in each of the 11 incidents, 7 incidents they looked at, 11 civilians being killed. They looked at ballistic evidence, medical records, interviewing multiple eyewitnesses, each person separately, not, in a group. What is your problem with their methodology?
Well, I understand that, and we appreciate any serious, credible investigation, but I would refer you, if I may, to a bigger, larger picture. Unfortunately, organizations like Human Rights Watch, I'm afraid to say, did not take the big picture into account.
But Ambassador Carmon, you're speaking in very general terms. They speak quite specifically about 7 incidents, 11 civilians, 5 women, 4 children who were killed while they were waving white flags.
I understand that, and I can tell you that I'm very proud to represent the country whose army, the IDF, is investigating as a matter of regular procedure any incident, any allegations that is submitted to it. It is doing so in a very clear and under legal scrutiny. I'd like to refer you, and if you're really interested to know, we have put up on our website, and I encourage you to see this very comprehensive research, 150-page report that specifically talks about the larger picture, but also about the charges against Israel on various issues, including these particular charges against Israel on the issue of white flags, but also other incidents that were thoroughly investigated by the IDF.
Now, the press release from Human Rights Watch and the gist of the report says that the internal military investigations have been inadequate, and they're urging more investigations into these specific cases. So my question is the IDF going to look at these specific cases? Have they looked at them already, and will they look at them again?
I can tell you that there is an ongoing investigation by the IDF, including on these allegations, and please do yourself a favor and go into this 150-page report that we have put out. You will see a new, very professional look at what this operation in Gaza was all about, including those various allegations that the IDF is investigating internally.
Israel's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Daniel Carmon, I reached him yesterday on the telephone. We invited him on the show, but he declined to come on with someone from Human Rights Watch and spoke to me over the telephone yesterday. Fred Abrahams, what is your response? And can you respond specifically to 2 points that he made? One, that the Palestinian witnesses that you spoke to, somehow that their testimony is suspect. And secondly, this internal investigation that he talked about, this 150-page report.
Right. Well, the main criticism from the Israeli government of our report is attacking the methodology. And, this is the same methodology we use all around the world, not just in Israel and Palestine. And it works. It relies on on-site visits and looking at ballistics evidence. We saw shell casings and ammunition boxes, tank tracks, excuse me. And the key issue is the witnesses. And they claim that you can't trust a Palestinian witness. Now, these are not one-off quick interviews. These are almost deposition-like interviews that go on for many hours, sometimes revisited, at least 3 individuals separately for each attack. And I really want to debunk the notion that these Palestinians won't talk about Hamas. They will, and I know it because I personally researched and wrote a report about Hamas violations against other Gazans. This is kneecappings, executions, disappearances against mostly Fatah members and supporters, but not exclusively. And what was the main source of our information for that report? It was Palestinian witnesses, and they spoke about it. They talked about how their relatives were taken away and are missing. And so it's just untrue that Gaza is a homogenous terrorist den. There is a wide spectrum of views, as the incidents last week show, where there was a battle between Hamas and a more extreme Islamist element that's in Gaza. So you have a variety of views, and people will talk about Hamas.